Welcome to the East African Perspective. I am Sanjifu Benjamin, your host, and this is Thomas Lesafe. Today we are going to talk about security in the region, and we are going to talk about basically the UPDF. The UPDF is not only central to Uganda, but it plays a visible and vital role in the whole region. From the Democratic Republic of Congo to Somalia. They started with AMISON and now to ATMIS. They are also in South Sudan. The UPDF has positioned itself both as a national institution, but also as a key player in the region. And at the same time, the UPDF faces big questions here and abroad where it's operating. So we want to see how national security and peace for normal East Africans is balanced.
I think it's a very great topic we have, because it's one of those topics that are really regional.
Yeah.
UPDF and Ugandan's army have been really influential in a lot of conflict and peacekeeping in the regions. If I were standing in Kenya right now, in Tanzania, I would ask myself, what is this army doing in South Sudan? What is this army doing in Congo? Because in many situations, they have replaced East African forces. It is quite clear that it leads to a form, the presence of UPDF in the regions come from back in the days where the freedom fighters that liberated Kampala thought of themselves as a freedom fighters army, and that influenced the doctrine of UPDF very strongly.
Yeah, and one of their core values back then was Pan-Africanism.
Definitely, and we have seen them operating all over the regions all the time with this agenda. Sometimes playing like with the East African forces, sometimes on their own, defending like regional dynamics, especially in the east of Congo. It's a very fascinating episode today. I hope we all understand how excited it is to speak of such a powerful army, which I believe is the second most powerful army in the region. I think you guys know about the first one, but we're going to speak of them.
So for a youth out there in the region, an East African youth, for somebody who is into business and they want to invest in the region, this is a very key issue to look at, because they go out to put peace in place and try to stabilize other countries or regions. And they are doing this so that people can trade and move around.
Correct.
That is why we are looking at this conversation. It is not about the military alone. That is how other people come in now.
It is not about military, it is not about Uganda. It is about the question of security in the regions and how an army that considers itself as a freedom fighters army come to take a Pan-African lead in most of the operations happening here.
And that means if its objectives are met or not, it becomes a global issue.
This is true. Yeah. In this episode, you will hear about the situation between Ethiopia and Egypt. We will ask ourselves, is UPDF will intervene for East Africa if there's conflict with Egypt? We are going to ask ourselves, where's Operation Shuja in Congo right now? Because there's been starting in 2021. ADF, there has been at least 86 people that have been killed last week by the ADF. Where is that operation? What is happening? We're also going to speak of, obviously, the situation in Somalia, where UPDF are present since the longest time, I think. It's probably the longest operations. Yeah. And, of course, the situation between Sudan and South Sudan being we'll see, but
at conflict, at odds.
At conflict,
where very, it's a very special situation. There is an active civil war in Sudan, and then South Sudan is on a brink of another civil war, and UPDF is in there.
And UPDF is not just in there. It seems to me that UPDF is the strongest security forces in South Sudan.
Yes.
So how will it react to RSF or Emeti controlling the borders? How will it change the different trade roads that always pass by Kampala? Those are some questions we're asking ourselves today. Where should we start with the opening of the Great Dam Renaissance?
Yeah, we could start with that.
And what could be the security implication for the region?
So even starting the dam or its plans were a secret until it was a very, very big secret until construction started. And Ethiopia had to wait until Egypt didn't have a government.
Correct.
Because if Egypt had had a government, I don't think that construction would have started. It's the biggest dam on the continent, fully funded by Ethiopia, no foreign loans. The only foreign money that came in from Ethiopians in the diaspora, about $56 million that bought bonds, and they expect to be paid back. So to put this dam in place, first, Ethiopia had to consult Egypt. To put anything on the River Nile, you have to consult Egypt. It is a colonial treaty that was signed and it is in place. It is international law.
Yes.
If Egypt doesn't approve, you can't do anything to the Nile.
It was at the time where Egypt was backed by British diplomacy.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And at the moment, they have the American cover. Ethiopia did construct a dam, and during one of the phases in Donald Trump's first term, Donald Trump asked the solution. He suggested to Egypt that the solution, your solution, could be bombing the dam.
One of my students asked me, why is it an East African problem? Why would that dam be an East African problem? I told them straight, the dam will provide electricity for East Africa.
Yes.
The electricity will be sold to other East African countries, right? Which is the same situation that we are in. We are also selling electricity to our neighbors. And second important thing,
Yes.
Egypt has the strongest military in Africa. It believes in this. Like we can debate about other militaries, but it can also, they might lose a lot in the situations. Can it lead to security issues where East African forces, East African army will have to get involved to protect such a dam? Apparently, Ethiopia will make $1 billion out of this dam every year.
Every year.
This is almost the same as Egypt is making with the Suez Canal.
Yes. And it's not only electricity. Behind that dam, a great reservoir is building up, and it is going to change the biodiversity of the place, but it is also going to contribute lots and lots of water for agriculture for Ethiopia. Ethiopia in the past has had food shortages, and it has been about their seasons. And they have a growing population, which needs to feed. If that population has food,
second biggest population in Africa.
It would be very, very
More than
important
10 million people landlocked.
Yeah. So they do need that dam. And at the end of the day, at some point, South Sudan will have to have their own dam.
Correct.
Uganda may need to develop more projects on the Nile. So how this situation is handled between Ethiopia and Egypt will determine what happens to the Nile in future. Will the pre-colonial agreement stand, or another agreement will come into place? Now,
one of the key questions is just if you can speak about that, like we are still ruled by colonial agreements when it comes to how we share the water of the Nile,
the resources.
Which basically means we are still bonded to colonial understanding of how the Nile should function, and our post-colonial leadership has never managed to change that.
Yes.
This is astonishing.
It's very astonishing. One of the areas where we are still under colonialism is how we use
That's
our water.
We use colonial laws.
The question is, who owns the water?
Who owns the water?
Yeah. And Egypt has started to make moves. Before Sudan went into turmoil, Egypt had started bringing its troops into Sudan, saying they had come for training. At the moment, they are officially in Somalia.
That's what I was about to ask.
Yes.
Like, what is East Africa doing by allowing Egyptian troops to set in Somalia, opposite the dam, right? Opposite the station. So within East Africa, there is Egyptian troop within East Africa when Ethiopia is also a East African member.
Yes.
How is it possible that we let the door
Ethiopia
for enemies of
geographically Ethiopia
now?
is part of East Africa, but they are not into the East African community. They are observer members, and they will be joined.
But even without East African community, we have an interest into getting the electricity of that dam to the region. The region will develop faster.
Of course. So we could put. Of course, now we look at diplomacy at the moment. All the avenues. There is IGAD. There is the East African community. And there is also the African Union, which is headquartered in Ethiopia. We have to look at these avenues. Why are Egyptian forces moving around? Why are they coming to Somalia when they were not under the original sort of
agreements.
They say they have been invited by Somalia. So now Somalia also has to come into the question.
But
Why?
How do we let Somalia invite foreign forces within the region?
So
without
Somalia has a right to do whatever it wants. That is why the UPDF in Somalia doesn't get involved in the politics. It sticks to its roles.
If you have a house, right?
Yes.
And then you are fighting with your neighbors. Now your auntie is inviting the neighbors to the house and stay in another room of the house. The house should still have a say about it.
Of course, as a region, we have to have a say. We don't know.
I believe the situation in Somalia is really problematic for the region, because not only Egypt has come. Egypt is okay. At least it's still an
because the African country.
You know?
Yes.
But we're speaking of Turkey. We're speaking of Qatar. We're speaking of
UAE.
what the Emirati UAE are doing in Sudan.
No, they are all over the region.
The more we open the door, even to local actors,
yes,
the more we also gonna have foreign actors like playing and melting in our politics. But I think it's also related to we can go down after Somalia and look at itself.
Yes.
The UPDF, because that's the topic of the day,
yes,
is very powerful in South Sudan. They control the airport, they control the oil field, and they control a lot of the borders.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
How do they see the civil war in Sudan, and what could potentially happen if UPDF wasn't here, for instance? Because I imagine that it's also threatening for RSF to have to deal with the UPDF.
What is clear, and what we have seen all over the world, when there is a conflict somewhere, it normally spills over to other countries.
Correct.
We are not UPDF, but we can assume, as they scenario plot, as they plan, they are preparing for an event where this conflict spilled over. And when the moment a conflict spills over, it causes very many problems. Sudan is already having its own problems, which have been given to the rest of East Africa. We don't need any more of those problems. So we are sure. One thing we can be certain about, UPDF is very watchful of what is happening in Sudan with RSF and also the Sudanese military. And most likely, it wouldn't be a good thing. Most likely, Sudan may end up producing another country.
When UPDF is in South Sudan, are they here because of the Pan-African doctrine that they have, because of the freedom fighters doctrine that they have, or are they here for Ugandan national interest? Because it seems to me that they have both had.
Ugandan national interests are Pan-African interests.
No.
They are.
We have to differentiate the two.
Yes, Thomas, we have to differentiate the two, but South Sudan is our brother.
Definitely.
What is happening there, we don't want to happen to any other country. We would want a stable South Sudan for the South Sudanese, but of course, selfishly for us, we have Ugandan traders in South Sudan. We have very many things we are selling in South Sudan because they haven't yet developed their industrial muscle. So things leave Kampala and go to South Sudan. So one of the reasons why the UPDF is active, especially along the routes leading to Juba, is to make sure trade can happen freely. Is to make sure the East African community is practical, is to make sure the free African trade area after is a reality than a fiction.
But if it is a reality, explain to me, Benjamin.
Yes.
Why it sounds like, and some South Sudanese have alerted us on this,
yes,
that UPDF is taking side on the current Riek Machar to Salva Kiir issues. Many have claimed, and the opposition especially have claimed, that UPDF is taking sides. Is it taking side on the behalf of East Africa? Is it taking side on the behalf of Uganda? Is it representing us? As it asks South Sudanese if that's the best?
We assume, we are not sure, but we have seen when you invite a foreign military into your territory to help with security, you have to pay them. So at the moment, who is paying the UPDF? If it was in that case, it would be the government, which is headed by Salva Kiir.
Correct.
Yeah, so such situations can't take away the aspect of bias. But Salva Kiir has also accused the Kenyan apparatus from time to time to sideline with Riek Machar once in a while. There have been those situations. So there will be bias. But UPDF sees the SPLMA as a brother, or
because they fought the war back in the
Yeah.
day together.
Yes.
Definitely Uganda was involved
Yes.
into helping the brothers of South
and
Sudan.
people like Garang were part of the struggle this side also in one way or another. They needed a better Uganda so that they would move weapons to their country.
Definitely.
They did contribute in one way or another. So there is history when people say there is a bias on which side UPDF
But-
is.
Benjamin,
Yes.
let's put ourselves in the foot of our audience. Some Kenyan youth are watching us
Yes,
right now.
yes, yes.
They have seen their vice president
Yes,
going to South Sudan
yes,
at a moment of crisis
yes.
and being told that they can't speak to no one
No, that was Raila Odinga. Unless they come to Kampala for permission.
Exactly.
Yes.
So not Kampala, Entebbe. They have to be flying to Entebbe
Yes.
first so they can speak. If you are Kenyan right now, do you understand this fact? How can we explain that to our audience?
We have seen this. This is not unique to the region, Thomas. This is not unique to the region. If something was to happen in Israel at the moment, you have to consult Washington first. Marco Rubio has to fly in first. Or somebody has to go to Washington first. It has happened all over the world. Even when South Sudan was getting its
Raila
independence.
Odinga is not a junior in the game. Why is it that he came to Juba to go to Entebbe? Could he not go to Entebbe then Juba?
Priority, if there are also places where we would need to consult Kenya first, or there was a time where we needed to consult Kenya. When the Somali government was still sitting in Nairobi before it moved back to Somalia, Kenya at some point did
We're the gatekeeper.
Yeah, were the gatekeepers
So
until we moved in and started to help with the security, and then we dominated. And then when Kenya realized, they had to find a way, and when an opportunity came, they did enter Somalia too. So there are those dynamics.
I mean,
That
to be fair with UPDF, there has been more peace in South Sudan since they are here than
Yes.
they were before.
Yes,
It is quite clear.
yes,
However, we can also understand the youth
Yeah.
that wonder how long is that gonna take for the situation to be stabilized and for
of course,
the country not to need a
South
referendum anymore.
Sudan has to work on its internal issues, political issues. At the moment, the government has decided to put charges on Riek Machar and his allies, and there is some backlash. So now the region has to either respect South Sudan's decisions and see these trials through. South Sudan, the government in Juba, could be having a plan of where it wants to see this go. There is a reason why South Sudan is the way it is at the moment, and there is a reason why UPDF can go in there. It's because when that young nation got independence, some institutions never really took shape, they never developed, and that created a situation that has brought them where they are. I'm highly sure the political elite, even the South Sudanese in the diaspora, even here in Uganda, are doing everything possible to make sure their country finds some set of normalcy, because they know more than us who are out here the potential of their country in agriculture, in human resource. They are trying their best, and they must be, and one day they will tell us about their roadmap of when they would want the UPDF to leave and they take over.
Okay.
Yeah.
UPDF has been strong in South Sudan. It's a long history.
Yes.
Another long history of East African geopolitics was the time where Omar al-Bashir decided to form a rebel group
Yes.
north of Uganda.
Yes.
That rebel group became the ADF.
Yes. The Allied Democratic Forces.
Allied Democratic Forces.
Yes.
They've been kicked out of Uganda
Yes.
by a solid UPDF
Yes.
missions.
Yes.
And they ran away and flee to the east of Congo. Now the UPDF have said that they need to get rid of the ADF.
Yes.
But we keep listening that they are making like atrocity in east of Congo. Literally since 2 weeks, since the beginning of September, they have made more killing
so
than M23
I'll give a little historical context, I may not go back to where it all started. When Omar Bashir realized there was a strong connection between the SPLM and Uganda, he decided to create a rebel group. People like Jamil Mokulu and all these leaders of ADF studied in Khartoum. They had gone there for Islamic studies. And then they came back as agents of Sudan. They set up the ADF and...
that was the time where South Sudan was not created.
Yeah, before South Sudan was created, yes. And one of the aims of Bashir was to make sure he destabilized Uganda to the point that Uganda could not even exploit its oil. Uganda, UPDF being disciplined, took time and was able to, with time, expel this group out of Uganda and push them into Congo. But they still were a threat to Uganda. They would make incursions, they would plot suicide bombs within Kampala. So Uganda decided to go back to South Sudan in Operation Shuja. So now that brings us... in east of Congo. That brings us to where we are, where you are putting us. Uganda has pushed this group further, but the group is still causing havoc, as you have said. So Thomas, I know you understand this region more, the east of Congo, you look at it. What do you think is the status of the ADF in Congo, and how do you think is the UPDF faring strategically? Tactically, we could have pushed them because we have superior
military.
Superior military, better weapons, better equipment, better intelligence, better trained soldiers. But on a strategic level, I wonder where we are. What is happening in the east of Congo?
For me, there's three major questions when we speak of East African presence in the east of Congo. Right?
Yes.
We have made on other episodes like the whole history of what is the east of Congo and how the east of Congo has been related to the east of Africa much more than to the west towards most of its history. We know that the Swahili coast, for instance, where the harbor where most East African Congolese product would go from a long time, from at least 16th to 17th century, right? So the east of Congo is attached to East Africa, right? This is not a new story.
Yes.
This is not a new story. However, colonialism and slavery before that, and colonialism turned upside down and now made the east of Congo being part of a state that is mainly governed by Western Congolese, right? So we have entered a situation where the east of Congo is a long dynamics. We're talking about long historical dynamics. But there's 3 points that for me are salient today to understand the situation. The first one is to say that Uganda and the UPDF are building roads to Beni, to Bunia.
Yes.
And those roads are not built by private contractors. They are built by the army because they are of national interest. The roads that will lead the east of Congo, the Kivus and Ituri, to Uganda will definitely boom the place of Uganda in the regions, and it will become a corridor of trade, right? And we know that with the institution that Uganda has, it will be really good. It would be really great. And now there is a lot of influx of product coming, especially the gold, but it is not always legal. It is not always driven by those roads. So first, the question of the new road to DRC and what do they produce? The second is, why is ADF still a threat to Congolese? There's at least two theories here. The first one is to say it is because we beat them up on the ground that they take vengeance on civilians after. And we know that the massacres happen towards roads. So usually they retreat, and when they retreat, that's when they attack. They retreat and they attack to say that we are still here. But it doesn't mean that they are military capable of doing what they used to be. But Operation Shuja is here since 2021, and we still have crime in Beni and Lubero. They have attacked Catholic churches. Those are definitely very problematic, and it requires East African dialogues I do believe it requires the East African dialogue on this topic. And then, last but not least, the question is, if AGF is in Mozambique in order to establish and help the forces of Islamic State that side, especially in the north of Mozambique, when you have big gas petroleum project that the Frelimo is really interested on having developed, if AGF are in Mozambique, why are UPDF not? How can we explain that it's Rwanda rather than Uganda being there?
That is a good question, because even originally, ADF first operated in the Albertine region, where all our oil wells are.
Yeah.
They seem to have that thirst to operate where the oil wells are. And they seem to move money around easily. We are yet to know how they're able to do that. But
actually, there's a great research about that. The money is coming from Somalia,
yes,
goes to Johannesburg.
Yes,
in Johannesburg banks distribute it to the different movement.
To the different
there's
movements.
Research about it. It's very fascinating.
So, as we move away from Eastern Congo, most people blame everything happening in Eastern Congo on minerals, and they claim Eastern Congo has minerals, and that is why there is a lot of havoc. But you said something. Eastern Congo is ruled very far away. Yeah, Kinshasa is very far away. The problem of Congo is largely governance. It is largely the strength of the government. And they have joined the East African community, but they have not yet been serious with their joining. Since they joined, their remittance, their contribution is only $1 million. So they are supposed to pay about 21 or 20 something $million. Even Somalia, that has problems, has paid up.
But they claim that the East African forces that came under the East African forces in DRC,
yes,
were literally providing intelligence to the different rebel group there.
That
we can understand.
Yes.
If that's what they think,
yes,
if that's the intelligence they have, why they don't want to pay. We can understand that, no?
Maybe that could be a good point. But when they come to the East African headquarters in Arusha,
yes,
they are very vocal and they want to be involved in this integration. The other thing is that the president in Kinshasa has decided to step away from most of the peace efforts that East African community has tried to put in place. Now all efforts have been put under the African Union, both those of East African community and SADC. They are all now under the African Union. But there is a question, why isn't, they may not trust the rest of East Africa.
No. They do not trust Rwanda.
Yes,
they have accused publicly Rwanda
of course they have,
behind the insurrections,
yes,
and many research have shown that there is definitely
Rwanda has established clearly why it has interest in Congo. One is Congo has allowed those that carried out the genocide to live in there freely. There is a reason. When these people are fleeing, they did go to Rwanda and Tanzania. Have you ever had any groups operate in Tanzania? No. So why? Because Tanzania is a strong state with strong governance. They can't allow anybody to operate.
Solid control of their borders.
Yeah. So
solid control of their
Congo can't control its borders. And one of the best ideas on how they would control or have some kind of stability is to have Kampala and Kigali help with the administration of Eastern Congo. That is very controversial.
Very controversial.
Very controversial.
They even publishing passports now.
But Thomas, I have asked on the podcast before, and I have told you, at the moment, Kivu is safer than it was after M23 took over. And there is a likelihood in maybe 10 years, if things don't change, Kivu would look like Hegisa in Somaliland.
Is it?
Yeah.
The triangle between Walikande, Bukavu, and Goma,
yes,
is definitely safer. However, we also know that the longest a military troop is staying, the more problems and drama it creates. Let me give you an example.
Yes.
Recently, one of my friends was in Goma in a bar, and then the M23 soldiers, pay attention to her. Now it comes as they harassed the girl, didn't want to give the numbers, and they shut down the bar. They were drama around it because if a soldier stay too long, the discipline lower, right? So the longer we have a region that is militarized, the more we might expect troubles. Yes, right now their presence might help the security, their presence might help the administrative, but we also should not take the lead of. We should not think that the wrong governance of the east of Congo is only coming from Congolese. It's like just a failure of Congolese.
Yes.
No, it is not just that. It is also a very complex region to rule. Since 1960,
Yes.
this place has been the problem of Kinshasa. Like if we have to make a list of the army that got involved from apartheid South Africa to Rwanda today, it is a long list.
Thomas,
It is a long list.
Thomas, the word complex, if we use that mentality that the east of Congo is complex, we shall never break it down. We have to try our best to simplify it, because at the end of the day, we want these mines to work. They did auction oil fields. We want oil to flow. Yeah. We want the universities in the east of Congo to function.
Yes.
If the people in east of Congo want to relate to Kampala and Kigali more, that will happen. That is up to them. If they want to relate more to Kinshasa, that can also be put in place, but only after there is some form of stability. It doesn't need to be full stability. Some form of stability.
Should UPDF extend its mandate? Because one thing we haven't said is that UPDF, most of the time, works with the local army.
Yes.
Like they are with the FIRDC in east of Congo. They're not alone.
Yes.
They're not alone.
They're not alone.
In Bunia, in Beni, they're not alone, right? Should they extend their mandate?
Now that comes back to who is funding the operations in Congo. Is it the Ugandan budget, or is the funding coming from Congo? Is it or from East Africa? The funding will. The other is we want the UPDF be outstretched at some point, because the UPDF is operating everywhere across the region. Correct. And it's the forces it is fighting are changing and evolving. ADF was ADF. Now ADF is very much affiliated to the Islamic State, ISIS. And we are seeing ISIS crop up all over the world, all over the globe.
And especially Africa.
Yeah,
Like
Africa.
since they've been kicked out and defeated in Syria.
Yes, so they have come to the Sahel, they're in Congo, they're in Somalia, they're in Mozambique.
Correct.
And it is going to be the strongest force in the region, or the strongest forces in the region, to take them on. So at what point will the UPDF say,
enough is enough.
Enough is enough.
Enough is enough.
Yeah.
Can UPDF take back Goma?
No. Goma is for M23.
No, but that's what I'm asking.
Yes.
Could potentially UPDF take back Goma at some point, where if a peace agreement is signed?
I think that would need the involvement of the United Nations Security Council or the African Union for that to happen.
Because Goma.
Because when you said take over Goma, it would sound like they would need to have a military campaign.
No, definitely. It would be an extension of the Shuja operations.
Thomas, I want us to move a little bit back to the horn, east of the continent. Yeah. I don't know if you have had anything come out from Somalia. We have talked about Ethiopia, and very many things are happening, especially with them launching the Nile. It can't be reversed. That dam is in place. I don't think it can be sabotaged, but we have seen things happen in Ukraine, so we never know.
Like for me, that's the main threat on this dam, sabotaging.
Yeah, sabotaging.
Because a full-scale operation by Egypt, we are far from it. But we do know that Egyptian secret services have had a long tradition
of sabotaging.
Especially with the issue they have with Israel. The sabotage of the dam is possible.
If they did sabotage the dam, it would flood. And if it was to flood all countries,
I mean,
downstream, South Sudan, Sudan, Egypt would face a surge in waters
let me ask
that
you a
would
question.
cause floods.
But would Egypt not have more water in the Nile if such thing is happening?
No.
It will.
No.
The water will flood and end up in the Nile.
No.
Going to Egypt.
No. Egypt's reservoirs, like
Yes.
the reservoir behind the Aswani High Dam, is
Yes.
full to capacity.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
it
any
would,
sabotage,
it would overflow other things. It
overflow
wouldn't-
and cause more problems
But is there no way to sabotage it?
without
And-
flooding.
Yeah.
They would need to infiltrate the Ethiopian electricity company and
Which I'm
whoever.
sure they've been thinking of.
Of course they are.
I can bet here
Of
that
course
there's
they
some
are.
office
If
in
you are an
Cairo where-
Egyptian,
of course, if you're
you are-
Egyptian, you would think
yeah,
about
you'd
it.
think
If you're
about
Egyptian,
it.
you
But
would think about it.
at the end of the day, we have to go to Addis Ababa and sit as a continent and solve that issue. We finish that, we need to develop INGA.
Yeah.
Another great project that
Definitely
could power the
Inga
whole
3,
of.
Inga 3. And then another
Yes.
white elephant, if I might say, is because it has been since Mobutu that Congo cannot build that dam. And, it's unexpected knowing that the first Inga has been built in 3 to 4 years.
Ramaphosa has tried to put an initiative in place to secure funding from the continent, but with what is happening, things are going slow.
And we can imagine that Ramaphosa right now is not
But
prioritizing.
why we are talking about the Nile is because the Nile is central to the region.
But Inga will be on Congo.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
But
Inga is on
again, if anything happened to the Nile, even Congo would be affected.
Definitely.
These river catchments are connected in one or another. They contribute to the ecosystem, the rains, and then the rains fill up the lakes that feed into these rivers. That is why we are very passionate about this. So in Somalia, at the moment, UPDF is in Somalia. We are talking about, and we were the first people to contribute forces. The UPDF contributed troops to AMISON then, which is now ATMIS. The only question is, we have been there. We were credited for securing Mogadishu. The question is, Thomas, if UPDF left Somalia, if ATMIS left, are you not scared we would see what we saw in Afghanistan
and the Taliban?
Yeah.
Definitely. I don't know who of our audience are watching the Taliban YouTube video, but there's a lot of YouTube influencers right now, TikTok influencers going to pretend that the
traveling to
Taliban
Taliban.
have great solution.
Yes.
And it's true that they have been more efficient on implementing justice than Americans were before.
That is questionable, debatable.
I believe that they do have better judicial system, even if I wouldn't agree on the rules that they put. But it seems to me
that makes
more
sense.
direct. But when it comes to Somalia, we do not want Mogadishu to become a new Kabul.
Yes.
Especially because the forces that were in place at the time were fighting outside of Somalia. We've seen attack in Kenya. We've seen attack in North Uganda. So it is quite clear that Somalia should be sorted out in the East African perspective. It should be sorted out by East African forces. When UPDF will leave, what will happen is unclear.
Because there is Kenya, Uganda, and Burundi, and now Egypt has come in. Ethiopia is also in there. So the question is...
And Turkey.
Of course, Somalia, Eritrea is helping with training the Somali forces officially. The question is, what will happen when they leave? Or are we going to have a scenario where we stay forever? After all, we're all East Africans.
That's definitely that's where I wanted to go. And I think we should ask our audience this. Yes. Would you back up an administrative forces? East African administrative forces, not the military forces as we see right now, East African administrative forces to go and administrate both east of Congo, the Kivus, and Somalia. Would it be possible to see our best administrators coming to Mogadishu, coming to Goma, and says, we are taking over administratively this place, like the Germans did when they administrate the territory they won during the Second World War, or when the French and the Americans administrated Germany after the Second World War. Do we have the capacity
We do
to
have
administrate those spaces?
we do have the capacity, but
Tell us in the comments what you think about that,
You-
because we always speak of military and how military interfere, but after military, there should be governance place. And what governance structure could East Africa help forming?
the problem is that to move troops around the world across borders, you either invited by the
No,
country.
but we're speaking of bureaucrats.
Yes,
We're speaking of bureaucrats from Kenya, from Uganda, that will come as East African to go and govern and put in place institutions that would function.
how the Somalis feel about that? You think?
I think you guys should tell us in the comments what you
Yeah.
think about such idea, but
Yeah.
it is definitely something worth thinking.
Yes,
How
because
do we replace military but administrators, and how militaries could be flooded administrators, right? They are not the same role. Exactly the way a freedom fighter might not become a great president. He was good at freedom fighting, but not everyone is good at becoming president.
yeah, true.
After our army, after the army cleans up and take the weapons, can we bring administrators? Would it not be possible? Would it not be possible? I still ask myself how East African community has let Rwanda go so down in 1994. Like when a lot of foreign troops, and especially the French in Operation
Thomas,
came here.
I would come in on that.
They came here, but Kenya
as the
couldn't,
French
Tanzania
troops,
couldn't.
as the French troops were in Rwanda under the United Nations, which troops were being led by Kofi Annan at that time. He was
Yeah.
heading the sort of the security and deployment.
Yeah.
In Nairobi, there were diplomatic efforts, to have the situation resolved. It is only that diplomacy wasn't. I think by then the whole region didn't have a strong diplomatic muscle, so there were few diplomatic breakthroughs. But we have seen this region succeed in diplomacy.
Definitely.
Sudan was created, yes, there was war, but to have independence, it was diplomacy back and forth.
Definitely.
Yeah, and we were also very instrumental as a region.
But is there not also a chapter in East African history
Yes.
where after soldiers
Yes.
come bureaucrats? And those bureaucrats, the same way, the IMF is sending always bureaucrats.
Yes,
The
yes.
World Bank send bureaucrats. Like, why is it that the East African community on its own
Yeah.
cannot say, listen,
Now-
we put this territory under our authority for 5 years, and we will implement the law of the East African community here?
At the moment, the East African community is having its own problem. As a community, not Uganda and Kenya, I mean the community that sits, the offices that are in Arusha.
No. Let me just
Yes.
cut here. Problems will be there. Problem will be there. In this
No.
podcast, you will find it
Thomas,
in 2027,
Thomas,
2030.
Thomas.
The question is how we can imagine what could replace those problems.
Let me tell you about the problems that East African community is having. You will even be surprised. A community that is supposed to make sure we move around freely, there is diplomacy, there is a court in place and a parliament,
Yes.
can't hire workers
Yes.
because countries are not paying up their
Definitely.
contributions.
That was the first page of the East African. I'm searching for it because I took that early.
I also had a copy. They can't hire workers. They can't pay the workers that are already there. If you look at the populations in East Africa, the whole HQ has about 420 employees. I don't think that is sufficient enough to run the organs and the institutions. So now, with those problems, human resource, basic, how then do you think we can
What I see, Benjamin, is that effectively,
Yes.
Goma, Bukavu, Walikande
Yes.
are currently governed and administrated by an East African force. Whatever we can
say,
speak about it,
yes.
it's not the East African community.
Yes.
But as a matter of fact,
Yes.
both South Sudan and East of Congo are currently mixed administrative organs. Let's call it like this, right? Where there is administration of Uganda from UPDF and administration of Rwanda through M23 that do govern the life of East Africans in those spaces.
Which is a good thing.
Not for me to say. Not for me to
no.
say. No, our audience can decide. But probably it's a good thing, yeah.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is that if Rwanda can end up controlling a part of East of Congo, then why is it that the East African community set this up and frame it.
What the East African community has to do is what the African Union did. The African Union decided to say the East African efforts and SADC efforts should come to Addis Ababa. So we can't say Kigali's efforts and Kampala's efforts go to Arusha, and then we have a new entity, a new organ that can deal with peace or security, and then it can back up the East African standby force. Or, where possible, we even have an East African police that is deployed on special occasions.
Yeah. The police, the army,
Yes.
we're good at it. We are good at it.
Yes.
As you said, there has been
Yeah.
conflict before,
Yeah.
things are deployed. My point is more to say, when the
Actually,
situation is
our police has
stabilized-
even deployed as far as West Africa, Liberia.
Definitely,
Yes.
definitely, and successfully.
Yes.
But when we have done this, right now the model is we give back authority, sovereignty
To the
the
country.
state.
Yes.
Right? Which is the model. And of course we understand where this model comes from. And of course Congolese
Yes.
would say, no, we want our sovereignty. And sovereignty is
Yes.
a big topic for the
Yeah.
youth. Big topic.
Yeah.
But can we not also see the historical dynamics and see that the east of Congo has been poorly governed for a long time and that they also deserve a better governance and that East Africa could also answer this need rather than simply answering the needs of military. But I think the topic is there on the hair.
Yes.
I think the question is bureaucrat versus soldiers. What should East Africa put in those spaces?
And it is a topic we could, I think, tackle on its own.
Definitely tell us in the comments if you are interested by such a topic.
It is a huge geopolitical question. If we figured that out, I don't think anybody would stop us.
And I do believe that it would serve integrations because the East African community is seen as a force that brings good governance to certain region of the bloc. So the youth will like it better.
So Thomas, I want us to move to something global.
Yes.
As we wrap up.
Close up and wrap up.
Yeah. So East Africa.
Yes.
Uganda, UPDF has positioned itself as a real regional player.
Yes.
I want to ask you, be neutral as you can. At the moment, there is talk by the global majority, which used to be called the Global South, of reforming the United Nations Security Council. Do you think UPDF has done enough to secure Uganda's place if the Security Council was reformed for a permanent seat, permanent member seat?
Very good question. Good question. First, so it's set on record. Yes. I do not believe that the United Nations Council is going to be reformed.
Yes.
I'm believing it's going to fall, and the new one will rise. Exactly as it happened between the Society of Nations, that
the
was
League of
established
Nations
after First World War,
yes,
and the UN that was established at Second World War. So I do not believe that such institution can be reformed because they are so historically grounded that that history that shaped.
Okay, that is a good take.
But if it has to be reformed, yes, and if that reform could bring something, because that's another topic, would any reform bring something very new? I do believe that UPDF is definitely one of the strongest arguments for East Africa to have a seat on the table. It is quite clear that the efforts have been made permanently, successfully, since a long time. If I compare with South African Defense Forces, right, where I used to stay and live in Johannesburg. That's why you can find some of the video in Johannesburg. They have not been involved successfully into making peace in the region the way UPDF have had, right? Obviously, it's not the same region. It's more stable in the south than it is in Central Africa. But South African Defense Forces has not bring many peace in different conflict. So comparing to other forces in the region, definitely UPDF is one of the most Pan-African forces. It is not perfect, guys. We're not saying it's perfect.
It is not.
We're not here to say that nothing have never happened. Those are
but on a regional, geopolitical lens.
On a geopolitical lens, you can count on UPDF to arrive, to be deployed, and to stabilize the situation in 95% of the places.
Followed by Kigali.
Definitely.
Okay. So that is basically the East African perspective on security and why it matters to the region and the continent as a whole. At the end of the day, how this region fares affects how the world fares.
But can I also ask you like a last questions maybe?
Yes.
Because I know our audience is also interested by it. The peace talk between Rwanda and Congo are happening not in East Africa, as we said, but in Doha.
Yeah.
And recently Doha has been attacked by Israeli bombs.
Yes.
I know you're following the situation closely. Doha has called for its main allies to unite and to front the situation. East African presidents were not there. East African president were not there, as far as I understand. It was mainly Middle East and North Africa.
It is no. East Africa was represented in the Islamic Organization of Islamic Countries. Uganda is a member of that organization. So,
but not by head of state.
Like not by the head of state. Yes.
Not by head of state.
So, what Africa is?
What's your take on that? What's your take on that Doha attack?
Of course, it was sad. Qatar established itself as a center for this diplomacy.
Yes.
When America wanted to withdraw from Afghanistan, they went to Qatar and met the Taliban.
Correct.
Very many peace efforts have been done in Doha, including what has been happening between Hamas and Israel. From time to time, ceasefires have been negotiated in Doha.
Yes.
And it looks like somebody is not happy because Doha is establishing itself as a place that can deliver.
Is that somebody researched by the International Court of Justice by any chance?
Yes.
Yes, that's somebody
so
we're talking about.
Somebody is
Benjamin Netanyahu. Let's call him.
Basically, my namesake is really jealous about that, and they did go in. It is sad that African Union did issue a statement.
Yes.
Yeah. Africa,
what did they say?
They did condemn Israel's attacks on Qatar and what the attacks meant for the peace efforts. Now, if you told me to go to Qatar now for peace talks, even about Democratic Republic of Congo, I will be scared.
But it's also about America.
Yes,
and about
very
how
much.
America protect or do not protect his allies, and how he rank his allies, and based on what. Right now, the main ally of America in the region is Kenya, isn't it?
Yes.
And
non-NATO. Kenya and Qatar are both non-NATO allies. Which means Kenya can be bombed tomorrow.
Exactly my point.
By anybody.
If Qatar can be bombed, and America and the US are calling you 10 minutes after the bombing saying that it was...
Now, the question is, if that happened with the GERD, the Grand Renaissance Dam, or if it happened to any of the capitals, what will regional players like the UPDF do about it?
Yes, and how we should also detach ourselves from thinking that America is going to help any security issues. We have more chance to see a coup by CIA than a peace deal by America.
Yes,
it's a problem.
That is their fabric.
It's a problem.
Yeah. So that is
conclude,
it. Yeah, to conclude.
To conclude.
Yes.
We have spoke of the role of UPDF. We have said that the involvement of UPDF has been useful for peace in the regions, have been strongly guided by Pan-African doctrine and Pan-African thought. However, obviously not everything is perfect. South Sudan has been in a shaky situation.
Yes.
East of Congo also has been there. Somalia as well. Are we, to conclude, are we at the edge of a new chapters of UPDF involvement in the regions, or are we more into a moment where they might withdraw?
They can't afford to withdraw.
They can't
because
afford to withdraw.
If they did, these things would affect Uganda at the end of the day.
Okay. So you believe that the military's leadership is full aware of this?
Yes.
And that's
I would think they are getting ready to stretch out their arms.
Fantastic. I think we should also conclude by saying that we should talk directly to the UPDF spokesperson and invite him here. He has been officially invited. So he also answers some of those questions, which are key to regional security and stability. Thank you so much for this podcast.
Thank you very much, Thomas.
The East African perspective will keep an eye on all the subjects and topics that we have seen. We'll continue to speak of the situations in all those theater of operations. You can count on us. Tell us in the comments what you thought of that episode. Subscribe if you like it. And tell us if you want to see more of the topic or a certain guest that should speak about it as well. Thank you so much, everyone. That was the East African perspective from Kampala with your co-hosts Benjamin and Thomas.
Thank you.